blood sugar regulation, blood sugar stability, blood sugar control, no matter how you choose to phrase it, it has far-reaching effects that go way beyond just diabetes. So let's take a look at why it's so important that we have blood glucose, blood sugar control. Welcome to Holistic Health Made Simple. Are you tired of chasing fad diets and endless workouts? Frustrated and confused by the conflicting advice on health and weight loss? Well, you're not alone. I'm Jolene, a nutritional therapy practitioner, and I'm here to guide you on a different path through holistic wellness. Together, we'll blend ancestral wisdom with scientific principles, making health and weight loss a reality. Say goodbye to yo-yo dieting and hello to simple, individualized steps that will help you reach your goals. Let's explore the power of healing your gut, optimizing your metabolism, and embracing whole foods. Ready to make that personalized wellness a reality? Let's get started on your journey to real health. Hey there! Today I want to look at blood sugar, blood glucose, and the big picture. We often focus on it more in the terms of diabetes or insulin resistance, but we never look at the big picture of everything that an unstable blood sugar, an uncontrolled blood sugar affects. It's more than just diabetes, prediabetes, insulin resistance. It's a bigger implication in your body. So what exactly am I talking about when I say blood sugar regulation, control, stabilization? Let's start there. Okay, let's start with the basics. We know that when we eat a meal that contains carbohydrates, the carbohydrates get broken down, the fiber goes to feed the gut, the rest of it gets turned into glucose or fructose depending on what's there, and the glucose is what is then either stored as glycogen to be used later or floods through your bloodstream. The key is when we talk about glucose control, we want to make sure that when we're eating this meal, our glucose is going to spike. That's normal. We can blunt the spike some way because we don't want it spiking a lot in the high range all the time. Sometimes it's fine, but it's going to raise no matter what. When you eat a meal that has some sort of carbohydrates, it will raise at some point. And 2 hours later, we want it back to our baseline. That's a regulated kind of glucose, unless you're constantly spiking it super high. We want moderate spikes when we eat. We don't want ginormous spikes. The numbers are going to be different. There is no set number. We like to keep spikes within 30 to 40 points. We don't want them jumping from 90 to 200. It's harder to get it back down at that 2 hour point. But we want this somewhat regulated, like small rolling hills throughout the day. So little spikes, comes back down, little spikes, comes back down. A lot of points where it's just kind of flat. Exercise can raise your glucose because, like I said, it's being stored for energy. Your body will release it to be used as energy. So there's a lot of reasons why your glucose fluctuates throughout the day. That may not just be related to food, but we want a set regulation. We want to regulate it, okay? There's a reason behind this. When you have too much glucose flowing through your system, y'all think automatically diabetes. But there's more to it than that. Diabetes is pretty much when your body can no longer shuttle it into cells because they're full. And there's so much running through your bloodstream all the time that you have this elevated glucose constantly. But what happens to the person that has plenty of room to store it or brings it back down but has these huge spikes and they have these energy roller coaster? The energy goes up and down and up and down and up and down because their glucose isn't regulated, so they don't have stable energy because of the way they're eating or because of the way the glucose is being released in their body. It is not just a diabetic that has this problem. An average person can have this problem. They could be on the road to diabetes. They could have insulin resistance already, but they may not, or they may be developing all these issues. However, having unstable glucose, not only does it lead to this energy roller coaster, which if you've live that, which most of us have at some point, it's no fun because the minute you crash, you're looking for food because you need to bring your energy up. When your body can self-regulate, meaning flowing back and forth from any energy that's there, you don't have these huge highs and lows. You just have energy throughout the day, all day long. You don't have this lull where you're searching for food or getting shaky looking for food. We're looking for even energy, which generally, that word generally is in there for a reason, will indicate that you have stable glucose. Now, having this unstable glucose, like I said, can lead to diabetes, lead to insulin resistance, or any of the issues that insulin resistance is a trigger for. It is far more reaching than just diabetes. But let's get back to why I started this, is having unstable glucose and not being able to control it brings in a lot of inflammation. And it is the first step, or one of the first 3 things we want to get stable in order for any healing protocols to work. So if you have unstable blood sugar and you're working on healing your gut and an autoimmune issue, just to put it in remission or to have a better quality of life, but your blood sugar is unstable, it's much harder to do that. We got to start looking at the body and all of its physiological functions together to get to that quality of life. We tend to look at, I'm not sleeping really well, so I'm only going to work on sleep, when there's something deep down that's causing that sleep issue. Could it be blood sugar issues? Absolutely. But we know unstable blood sugar does lead to extra inflammation, which will cause all sorts of issues in your body. And if you are trying to work on something else going on, you need to get your blood sugar under control. As I'm working with somebody beyond weight loss, let's say that they came to me for weight loss, but they need to get healthy. They need their health. They're complaining of these symptoms that we need to work on as well as the weight. Blood sugar regulation not only helps facilitate weight loss, it helps with some of the symptoms. But it's before I can get the gut even healthy, I need the blood sugar balanced. That's how all these steps kind of work. And I'm sharing this because too often you'll go into a holistic practitioner and they'll throw a protocol at you because you're having a symptom without noticing that your glucose regulation is horrid. And that's a problem, because with that being horrid, you're just spinning your wheels and you might be spending tons and tons of money on supplements that aren't going to get at the root of the problem. Not that the glucose is the root of the problem, but it could be, but it's also going to be the thing that stops you from progressing. Like I've said in many of my previous episodes, is starting with the basics is fundamental. Without getting these basics somewhat down, and from a healing perspective of your own body, getting certain fundamentals besides just eating real whole foods, making sure that you're getting your blood sugar regulated, making sure you're not anemic or that you're getting in the iron, absorbing the iron so that your bodies can get oxygen into the cells, making sure your thyroid levels are optimum and functional. Those are 3 key things that if they aren't working, everything you're doing is just spinning your wheels. You might say, I know if my thyroid's off, I'm never going to lose weight. That's not just it. Is if you have some sort of thing like rheumatoid arthritis that's an autoimmune issue and people are throwing a protocol at you, but not looking at your thyroid, not seeing if you're anemic, not checking your blood sugar, you're spinning your wheels because those things keep throwing the whole body out of whack. Those are the 3 fundamental things to target. Now, when I talk about fundamentals, like where you got to start is at the basics, it's always eat real food, make sure you're hydrated, move your body, get sleep, prioritize your protein. Those are the same things that help you regulate and get your body back into balance with anemia and blood sugar. Thyroid does require medical intervention. You cannot make your thyroid optimum if you are no longer making thyroid antibodies or the thyroid hormones. If you have thyroid antibodies and your thyroid hormones are not being produced. Let me correct that. So we want to make sure that we have the basics. And the biggest basic that is lifestyle is your blood sugar. I will do a secondary episode touching on the thyroid and anemia because they're a much smaller topic, but blood sugar. We all know that blood sugar, I don't care if your whole family is diabetic. It is a lifestyle. A lifestyle change and dietary change can put this back into check. Regardless, unless you have let it go so far that you have damaged your pancreas and are insulin dependent because you are no longer producing insulin, like a type 1, but there also is a type 2 that converts to 1.5, which means they've kind of killed the beta cells in the pancreas. That's hard to undo, but regardless, making certain dietary changes to get your glucose back under control, whether you're a diabetic or not. You can not be a diabetic, you can even be thin and still have glucose control problems. So we need to look at what we're eating, how we're eating to correct this, depending on your personal choice of eating style. You will have to make different adjustments. For some people, a spike here and there is not the issue. It's the constant up and down all day long. So if you choose a Mediterranean diet, a keto diet, paleo diet, even a vegan diet, depending on how you gear everything, and depending on how severe your insulin resistance is, how severe your blood regulation is, you'll have to make certain adaptations. Paying attention to your energy levels and what you ate prior. When you eat a meal, you should eat a meal that prioritizes your protein and has a lot of fiber-filled vegetables. If you want some of those starchy carbs, they should be the smallest portion of your plate. Healthy fats are good. They're saying about 30% of your diet should be healthy fats. An optimum diet, if you don't want to go low carb or keto, well, this still technically puts you in low carb, is a 30-30-30. 30% protein, 30% carbohydrates, and 30% fat. And you balance out your meals accordingly. One thing you don't ever want to do is have a starchy, sugary carb all by itself. The glucose spike is immense at that point. Unless you're going to do something like exercise right afterwards, if you are strategically using it because you need that energy because you can't tap into fat during a high intensity exercise program, go for it. But learning how to adjust your meals so that you're not getting the roller coaster of energy, making sure that you're eating plenty of, when you're eating carbs, that there's plenty of fiber in those carbs and that you're pairing it with protein and a fat. The 30-30-30 is something new to me, but the more I look at it, for an average person who does not want to go like ketogenic, it's probably the most optimum way to get this roller coaster of energy, the roller coaster of glucose, more in control. Now, when I say 30-30-30, on those 30% carbohydrates, I still expect you to get in mostly fibrous vegetables. Your leafy greens, asparagus, Brussels sprouts, cruciferous vegetables, things of that nature, and then a small portion would be something like a potato or a rice. To make it really simple, especially if you're very visual, click on the show notes. I have a handout that will tell you exactly how to build a plate that will make your life a lot easier. I know a lot of you just don't want to track. I don't track because it became unhealthy for me. Some of you will need to track. Whatever it is, you want to make sure that you can lower that carbohydrate intake, especially from simple carbs, from sugary carbs, as much as you possible so that you don't have this roller coaster or that you can get off of it. And then work on the rest. When you're working on your health, you do have to do things you may not want to, like give up foods that aren't working with your body. And highly processed, full of sugar foods don't work with most people's bodies. Unless you're like an elite athlete and working them off. And even then, there have been studies that show elite athletes oftentimes can present as diabetics or insulin resistance because of the amount of carbs and the amount of stress they put on their body on top of that. Our goal is to be the healthiest version of ourselves. Does that mean I am telling you you're never having dessert? Absolutely not. What I'm saying is dessert at every meal is probably not your best option, especially if you want to be mobile and independent as you age. We have to think long term and stop looking for that instant gratification of the moment. It's hard. I struggle with it too. I struggled with my weight my entire life, but it wasn't my weight that I truly struggled with. It was my health. And now, at the ripe old age of 53, I have to make sure I don't ever go back over the edge into the unhealthy I was. I may not be a skinny size 2, though honestly, I was never a skinny size 2. I am a normal sized woman. I have a butt, I have thighs, I have cellulite. I'm working on building extra muscle, just like you. And every day, I look at the foods I'm eating to make sure I get off the sugar roller coaster and stay there. And I just want to say, by partnering with me and listening with me and working with me, whether it's by listening to the podcast and sharing it to your friends and leaving a review, or actually physically working with me, or just linking arms and being my support buddy. 1, I appreciate you listening, but 2, know that we're all doing this together. Health, especially at middle-aged and beyond, is an ongoing thing. It never stops. You don't get healthy and it ends. It's a daily process to look at that food in front of you and say, is this going to help me reach my goals of being healthy and mobile and self-sufficient or not? It's that simple. Sometimes you'll choose the not. But the goal is to choose the healthy more often than the not. On that note, friends, I will see you next time. Bye! Thanks for listening in today. I hope you got some nuggets to take away on your health journey. Remember, this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes. No medical advice is being given. By listening to this podcast, you agree to the full disclaimer, which is linked in the show notes. You can stay connected to me by joining the newsletter at holistichealthmadesimple.com, where I share additional tips and tricks weekly. Once again, thank you for being a part of my community, and until next time, have a blessed day.